You're listening to the Dungeons, Dragons, and Psychology Podcast. In 1942, the New Yorker magazine had an article. It was a profile of Wilson Mizner, and it contained several witty sayings that were accredited to Mizner, including the following. He was credited to say, "If you steal from one author, it's plagiarism. If you steal from many, it's research." What is very interesting about this particular quote that was attributed to Mizner is that by the time it was written in 1942 as attributed to him, it had already been attributed in other forms, only slightly different, by more than a dozen other authors or lyricists and singers and poets. And after that, since 1942, it's been attributed to more than 20 others as well. It's just an excellent point that in writing, in storytelling, in many things that we do, there are very few things that are truly unique left. I'm Robert Walker, author of Session Zero, the DMG to writing great campaigns in any system. And this is my show where I teach collaborative storytellers how to have more immersive campaigns using psychology. And on today's episode, we're going to be talking about borrowing and modifying narrative ideas from various sources and seamlessly adapting them into unforgettable tabletop RPG campaigns and adventures. So let's get started. First, let's talk about finding sources of inspiration to enhance your narratives or to create a campaign. Where do you find these ideas from? First, films offer a treasure trove of inspiration. You can consider the classics like Lord of the Rings for epic quests and world building. Star Wars can inspire tales of heroes against overwhelming odds. Blade Runner provides a gritty dystopian atmosphere. Pay attention to the cinematography, character development, and thematic elements in those cinematic adventures, and find something that has a similar feel or mood or story arc to what you want to include in your story. If you've heard me talk on this show about how I keep notes or how I find some pieces of information, you will probably have already heard me say how I keep notes on my phone close at hand so that whenever I hear even a line that I think is incredibly good, that a good villain could adapt and use, I'll jot that down. Or if it's a quick dialogue between two characters that sparks an idea for a plot for me, or simply as the plot of a movie was really, really good, I'll write that down too. Like if this was adapted into a fantasy setting, this would make an excellent adventure arc or story plot. Next, look at video games. They have a goldmine of information, like titles like The Witcher delivers intricate character-driven stories within rich lore. Mass Effect showcases breaching narratives and very complex moral choices, which is something that you all know I am a fan of. BioShock explores thought-provoking themes in a very dystopian setting. So dive into computer games. Dissect the storytelling techniques that they use in them, and extract elements that resonate with the campaign that you're trying to build. Next, novels, both classic and contemporary. They offer boundless inspiration. J.R.R. Tolkien's high fantasy. J.R.R. Martin has intricate political drama. The literary word teems with diverse narratives. Neil Gaiman's unique blend of mythology and modern fantasy, for example, could spark a whole plethora of imaginative campaigns. So when you're reading, focus on the character arcs and the way that the world building is done and thematic exploration. I have used magic systems that are unique and creative to worlds and just incorporated the way that magic works into my stories before. Things like that can be, you take one piece from one book and another piece from another, and all of a sudden you have this entirely different idea that doesn't really look anything like one of those books in particular, but the ideas were melded together. Next, look at the rich tapestry in myths and legends from various cultures, Greek mythology, the Norse sagas, African folklore, just to give you a few examples. But look at the tales of gods and heroes and mythical creatures and pay attention to the archetypal characters, the quests that they go on, the moral dilemmas that they face. They're very prevalent in mythology and timeless stories, things that would make a great fantasy epic or whatever theme you're using in your role-playing games. And then look at history. History has a ton of inspiration for creating immersive campaigns. Dive into historical events, historical periods, and famous historical figures. The fall of empires like the Roman or the Byzantine Empire can provide a backdrop for very epic tales. Legendary explorers such as Marco Polo, they offer intriguing character templates, and you can focus on the drama and the conflicts and societal changes that shaped history and the narratives that took place in those, and those can be adapted into whatever game you want. Another place to look is art, illustrations. Visual art can be a powerful muse for world building and storytelling. Explore paintings and illustrations and concept art from various artists in multiple genres. The surreal landscapes of Salvador Dali or the imaginative creatures of Hieronymus Bosch or the detailed fantasy realms of illustrators like Alan Lee and John Howe can spark your creativity. Use art as a springboard to describe unique locations or creatures or magical items that you want to use in your campaign. Look into the rich tapestry of folklore, urban legends, and myths, or even religion. Use these things they carry deep significance to cultures, and they can be a well of inspiration for creating unique and culturally rich campaign settings. So whether it's tales of creatures or ghostly apparitions or local heroes or unique and forgotten religions, they often have narratives and parables that can add depth and authenticity to your game world. And the last idea I will give you is to look into the realm of science and futurism. It can be a great depth of information and innovative campaign ideas. Look at cutting-edge scientific discoveries or theories and futuristic concepts like space exploration or artificial intelligence or biotechnology. You could even adapt these things and create a sci-fi or futuristic setting, but you could also adapt them into magic. Think of cloning, and that is a scientific concept, but you often see the idea replicated in fantasy stories as well. Why so many quotes and so many things out there that discuss magic as science or science as magic? So why not use scientific concepts and put them in a fantasy game? It makes a lot of sense. So now let's explore some techniques for transforming these sources into tabletop adventures. Adaptation alchemy, if you will. So begin by identifying core themes and elements within your source material that you resonate with. Whether it's heroism or moral dilemmas or the clash of civilizations, pinpointing the items that intrigued you about the material in the first place will serve you as a guiding star. And then you want to reskin and reinterpret. Reskinning involves taking an idea and giving it a fresh coat of paint to fit seamlessly into your campaign setting. So for example, if you're inspired by a movie's space pirates, they could become skyship raiders in a steampunk campaign or gnomish airship raiders in a D&D world. Reinterpretation allows you to take the essence of a story or an element and reimagine what it would look like in your world's rules and your world's lore. So those space pirates being transformed into a faction vying for control of celestial portals would be really awesome. And then mix and match. Don't hesitate to blend elements from different sources. This is my favorite thing to do. Combining a character's personality from a book with a plot twist that was really great in a video game, for example, or this all takes place in a historical event that you thought was really interesting. The synthesis of ideas leads to entirely unique feeling narratives that can captivate your players, and it keeps your story fresh and very unpredictable. Then think of a player-centric adaptation. Consider involving your players in the adaptation process. Ask them for input and incorporate their character backstories, another thing we talk so much about on this show, and their motivations into the narrative. A player-centric approach could create a more personalized and engaging story where each character has a stake in the adapted narrative. Next, think of world integration. So to create a truly immersive experience, ensure that the adapted narrative seamlessly integrates into your campaign's world, its lore, its rules, and the established plot lines that you might already have going if you're just adding pieces to the story you're already running. It should feel like a natural extension of the existing story, weaving it seamlessly within the threads you've already established. You don't want it to feel like a large chunk of something else that just got dropped in there without thought. You want it to feel like the rest of your world so that it seems like it belonged there from the very beginning. Then always remember flexibility and improvisation. Stay flexible throughout your whole campaign. Adaptation doesn't mean rigidly adhering to source material. You want to allow for improvisation and the possibility that your players might take the narrative in unexpected directions. Be prepared to adapt your adaptation as the story unfolds. Just remember, as you're borrowing and modifying narrative ideas, inspiration is all around you. It's the silver screen, the pages of a book, the annals of history. This world offers a plethora of stories waiting to be transformed into epic adventures for your game table. So with that, let's head over to Tricks of the Trade. So in today's Tricks of the Trade, we're going to talk about crafting unique plots and characters, borrowing and mixing various ideas from famous stories and characters, and remixing it into a fantasy role-playing setting. So number one is going to be Sherlockian sorcerer. So you incorporate the deductive genius of Sherlock Holmes into your campaign by creating an enigmatic sorcerer with unparalleled analytical skills. Borrow Holmes' knack for solving intricate mysteries and adapt it into a fantasy world where magic and intrigue are intertwined. In your campaign, players could encounter the sorcerer while investigating a series of unexplained magical phenomenon or a string of puzzling disappearances. This character might possess an arcane library filled with cryptic tomes and scrolls, serving as a valuable ally or an enigmatic antagonist. The challenge for the players lies in unraveling the sorcerer's secrets and discerning the true motivations that they have. This adaptation would allow you to blend the thrill of investigation with the enchantment of a magical realm. Our next idea is for a dystopian rebel. Here you could draw inspiration from dystopian tales like George Orwell's 1984 or Margaret Atwood's The Handmaid's Tale to create a resistance movement in the fantasy world. Adapt the oppressive societal structures from these stories into a campaign setting where a tyrannical ruler holds sway. Players could join forces with a rebel group, each character bringing unique skills to the table as they navigate a world rife with surveillance magic and propaganda. They must make moral choices that impact the rebellion's fate. And this adaptation would allow you to explore themes of resistance and freedom and morality and weave in a gripping narrative of political intrigue and defiance. And then next we have the Renaissance inventor. So you would channel the spirit of Leonardo da Vinci's inventive genius into your campaign by introducing a Renaissance-era inventor with a flair for crafting magical contraptions. You could borrow Da Vinci's curiosity and creativity, adapting them into a fantasy world filled with enchanted devices and arcane mechanisms. Your players might encounter this inventor while exploring a city of wonders where magical technology and artistry reign supreme. The inventor could task the players maybe with recovering blueprints or thwarting a rival's sabotage attempts. Incorporate Da Vinci's diverse interests from anatomy to engineering into a series of quests that challenge players' problem-solving abilities. This adaptation will add a layer of innovation and exploration to the campaign and allow your players to delve into the mysteries of arcane invention and uncovering the inventor's enigmatic past. That is all for today. Thank you so much for joining me. getting closer and closer to the end of my master's program. So still continuing with these shorter episodes as I am fervently working on finishing my capstone project. Until next time, my friends, remember that you can always find me on Instagram at dungeons_dragons_psychology, where there's a link to the Linktree, to our Patreon. If you want to join and become an official cyclithid, you can find the link on there. As always, until next time, we will see you next session.